Mark, congratulations to you and Lloyds of London for achieving ClearAssured Platinum. And thank you for taking the time today to share your experience of what it means, what it represents. So what does ClearAssured Platinum represent for Lloyds of London?
So achieving ClearAssured Platinum has immense meaning for Lloyds. Particularly if we think about the journey that Lloyds has been on with ClearAssured. And when I came in I think January 22, Lloyds was at silver level. A number of market participants were using ClearAssured and frankly had gotten ahead of Lloyds at that point. And as one of the key parts of Lloyd's oversight framework is around culture, it was really important for us to be able to lead in that respect. So achieving ClearAssured Platinum over this period of time is really very important. And I think it speaks to a lot of the focus and a lot of the work that's gone into that, both in the corporation but also outside in the market, which has led to this.
So in one sentence or one word, what does Platinum prove about Lloyds to the market?
So I think in one word, what it proves to the market, for me, credibility.
What does achieving Platinum mean for you personally, and what did it take from your leadership?
So I think for me, achieving ClearAssured Platinum is really important. Number one, I've been through the process before, so I know exactly how rigorous it is. And it is a high bar to climb. And like I said, when I came in at Lloyds, we were at silver and behind the market. So to now be in a position where we've achieved Platinum, where we're the first in the market to do it, I'm incredibly proud of that. But also the contribution that everybody has had to make to that, whether it be Lloyd's leadership, whether it be the people that work in the CTC team and have worked there over the last few years. Everybody has played a really integral part to that.
So Mark, tell us, why did you choose to pursue ClearAssured at Lloyds?
So at Lloyds, we chose to pursue ClearAssured because it is a really rigorous framework. I think I said earlier that we are in a position where culture is one of the key principles in our oversight framework. So it requires us to be able to live up to the standards that we set. And ClearAssured is one of the ways in which we can do that. I think over time, pursuing ClearAssured as an accreditation framework has meant that we've sharpened our practices in all areas of talent. How we oversee the market, the data we gather, how we raise awareness, how we deliver impact, how we measure that impact, how we evidence what we're doing. So all of that has been really key. But I think for me, the most important aspect is we picked the most rigorous standard to attain. And that's why attaining it feels even better.
So since starting the ClearAssured journey, what has been the biggest change in Lloyds of London culture?
The biggest change in Lloyd's culture, if I kind of look at it in two parts, if I look at the market and look at the corporation. For the market, there's no doubt we were behind what the population of the UK looked like, whether it was a gender, ethnicity, or other demographics. That's changed. Being able to evidence that change has been a real catalyst in us getting people interested in Lloyd's as a place to come for careers. Really evident in the change in our early careers pipeline. The corporation last year had around 20 spots for early careers and an application pipeline of 7,000. And the diversity in that was fantastic. We used to have a problem with the supply of talent, early careers talent wanting to come into the market. Today, that's not true. That's been a major change. And then for the corporation, I think one of the great things about the corporation is that it's a really friendly place to work. But friendliness is not the same as inclusive. And that focus on inclusive practices and really focusing on performance management has meant a huge change in that area. And so for me, those are two things that I'm particularly proud of, and I think people would tell you they've seen a big difference in.
What would colleagues notice day to day that's different as a result of going through the accreditation?
So I think colleagues would notice a big difference compared to a few years ago. And I think it's evident in the colleague experience. You know, when we ask people, you know, are you proud to work at Lloyds? Fantastic response, and you know, people recommend highly Lloyds as a place to work. But when you look at the differences in those answers between groups, they've got smaller and smaller and smaller over time. You know, you can walk into the building and see nudges and messages on our plasma screens all around us. And I think some of the proof of that is, you know, over the last years we've done a lot of outreach work. And I just love it when you see young people in the market and they stop you and they say, actually, do you know, I came into this market because Lloyds was doing this outreach work. And I met someone in the market and they talked to me about those careers, they showed me the pathway. I followed that, and now I'm here in the market, whether it be corporation or in the wider market. And another example of that is the work we've done around inclusive futures, where, you know, over the last year or two, a few people have stopped me and said, you know, I'm from an ethnically diverse background. This is the reason that I chose to apply to Lloyds, because of how you manage that process and what you're doing in terms of the Inclusive Futures program.
What is one practical change that Lloyds of London made across its employee lifecycle as a result of going through the ClearShield accreditation?
One great change across the employee lifecycle was how we managed reasonable adjustments. Right? We have a tool called Clear Talents, and that has allowed us to really change the emphasis. So the conversation has stopped being, you know, tell us about your disability, and started to be, tell us about what you need to work effectively. What adjustments do you need? And that has had a sea change. You know, I think when I started in 2022, around 2% of people disclosed a disability in the HR system. That number was far higher in Clear Talents. Today, people are so confident about us making reasonable adjustments and disclosure through Clear Talents that stat stands at over 10%. That's a massive change in a few years. It's a great practical example, not only of, you know, an action that ClearShield has changed, but what it's meant for individuals as well. External scrutiny is really important. And to me, it's really important that the kids don't mark their own homework, right? That is really important. And the external scrutiny gives you a couple of things. It gives you access to benchmarked best practice, right? That's really important. And then you can make an informed choice about what is right for your business or not. And what I love about working through the ClearShield process is it's not just a tick box exercise. It's not put in this policy with these words in it and you tick the box and you walk off. You put in a policy which has examined best practice, is right for your business, and what matters is how you measure the impact that is having. And I think that's why I particularly like that framework.
So how has Lloyd's partnership with the Clear Company supported its cultural, you know, evolution?
Yeah, so Lloyd's partnership with Clear Company has been quite long-lasting, probably even before my time. But you know, Clear Company have been a trusted partner to us, both through the ClearShield process and in other pieces of work like our culture review. I think when you set out on a journey to change an organization's culture, to measure the impact, it is really important to have a trusted partner to do that. One who's going to A, hold you to account, B, show you what great looks like, and also partner with you and understand why your context matters and how some things are different industry to industry. And we've had great support in doing that.
So how have you built shared responsibility for culture across Lloyds?
So I think building that shared responsibility for cultural improvement has been underpinned by a couple of things. Number one is evidence. Whether it's the evidence that we gather through the MPP, the Markets, Policies and Practices Return, and or the Culture Survey, and the attestation process that firms in the market go through related to our oversight. That gives us a wealth of evidence. Statistical evidence, qualitative evidence, best practice evidence. Hugely important because you can make better decisions when you've got the evidence. And so that kind of having a framework to work to for the market and understanding what good look like has been a real catalyst in that progress. For the corporation, it's the same thing, and ClearShield has given us that framework. You know, here's what great practice looks like. This is the evidence that we expect to see. These are the outcomes over time. And having that framework really does help. And therefore, you can engage teams like the talent acquisition team or the procurement team, research, communications, etc. Everybody's in it together because it's the organizational outcomes that matter, not HR or people function inputs.
How did you make leaders and managers accountable for inclusion? So inclusion is owned not just by the people team, but also by the leadership at Lloyds.
Making sure that everyone owns accountability for progress is key. Our Lloyds values and behaviors, that's part of our framework. But also everybody has a values and belonging objective. Right? Culturally, it's built into the fabric of the organization. Our senior leadership has a scorecard and culture is weighted as part of that scorecard. So there's both individual accountability and group accountability. And then, we also have the accountability of facing off to the market. So, ensuring that we are practicing what we preach, that we are applying our culture oversight framework to ourselves, expecting that standard. And that journey has been one of steady progress. But for me, it's really important, that point around accountability.
So how will Lloyds use Platinum status to shape the next phase of its culture and influence across the market?
I think achieving Platinum really allows Lloyds to evolve. Number one, it sets a standard the rest of the market can now try and achieve. But I think when we look strategically, what it means for Lloyds is having the data and insight that's available. We know matters of diversity are improving. We know culture is improving. We know that experience gap between various groups is getting smaller and smaller. But it also shows us that we have talent challenges ahead. And for Lloyds, it allows us to take the evidence of our good practice, being a good employer, a good market to work in, and apply that to attracting that talent into the market. And for us, that's going to be incredibly important over the next few years. So I think the number one thing is, it's that stamp of approval. Talent, actually, come here. It's a great place to work, great place to develop your career, great opportunities. And for the market, it says, this is what we can achieve together. So let's all get there.
So what does external validation from ClearAssured means for Lloyds, for the leaders, and the wider market?
The credibility that ClearAssured Platinum gives us is great. If you think about the colleagues that are in the market out there doing outreach, that are inspiring the next generation of talent, which are facing off to their counterparts in the market, it's a difference between saying, no, trust me, this is a great place to work and it's really inclusive and we've got a good culture and we care about it, versus the evidence that that's the case. And that is so invaluable. It really does help bust myths as well. And so I think for me, that is truly one of the key bits around that credibility. It's not us just saying that we've worked hard and done well on this. It's externally validated, and that evidence and then the credibility that sits behind that evidence is important.
If another organization is considering ClearAssured, why would you say it's worth it?
So I think if you're considering joining ClearAssured, what it will give you is a very clear framework to measure your progress. It'll help you along that journey and will hold you to account. And I think one of the particular benefits of it is it helps various teams around the organization to mature their practice. And so if you're thinking about going along that journey, then jump in with 2 feet, but it's not an easy mountain to climb. But that's the benefit of it in the long run.
And what would you say to an organization or a peer that is concerned about cost, time, or capacity to start the accreditation journey?
Thinking about team capacity, this is also why the functionality that sits behind ClearAssured is so important. Because you can disaggregate that across the departments that are working on various pieces of work or various projects. You can collect the impact. You then can digitally upload that impact. So it's not like one person is sitting there and 90% of their time is spent logging evidence for accreditation. That's not the way it works. So it allows you to really focus on the outcomes you're trying to pursue. And then there's a quick, easy mechanism for getting that evidence to the assessors and getting feedback on that evidence too.
Mark, thank you very much for sharing your experience with us of achieving platinum and what it means for Lloyds and the wider market.